The paper bag of dinner rolls slid across the passenger seat as I took the exit towards Savannah. 4 hours behind me, 4 containers of my famous green bean casserole in the cooler, and a 20-pound turkey that had taken me 2 days to brine sitting in the trunk. November 22nd. Thanksgiving was still 2 days away, but I'd wanted to get to the rental property early, get everything prepped, maybe surprise Jessica and the kids when they arrived tomorrow. I'm Margaret Chen. Most people call me Maggie. 68 years old, retired from 30 years of being a high school principal, and if you'd asked me that morning, I would have told you I was one of the lucky ones. My husband Thomas passed 5 years ago, but we'd had 40 good years together. Our daughter Jessica was married with 2 teenage grandkids I adored. And I had the little beach rental property in Savannah that my parents had left me, a place filled with summers of my childhood and now, I hoped, making new memories with my grandchildren. The GPS said I'd arrive at 2:15. Perfect timing to unload, start organizing the kitchen, maybe take a walk on the beach before sunset. I turned onto Palmetto Street and immediately noticed the pickup trucks. 3 of them parked in front of my property. My property. The cottage with the blue shutters and the porch swing where my father used to read the paper every morning. The blue shutters were gone. I pulled into the driveway slowly, my heart starting to do that uncomfortable flutter thing. There were men on ladders. The front door was propped open with a paint can. I could hear a table saw screaming from somewhere inside. I got out of my car, still holding my purse, and walked toward the open door. A young guy in a tool belt nearly ran into me coming out. "Whoa, sorry, ma'am. You can't be here right now. Active work site." "This is my property," I said, and my voice came out smaller than I meant it to. He looked confused. "You, Mrs. Morrison?" "I'm Margaret Chen. I own this house." "Oh." He scratched his head. "Mrs. Morrison's been signing all the work orders. She said she owns it. You might want to talk to her." "Mrs. Morrison." "Jessica." She'd kept her maiden name professionally but used Brad's socially. My stomach dropped. I walked past him into my parents' cottage. Except it wasn't the cottage anymore. They'd knocked out the wall between the kitchen and living room. The hardwood floors were covered in dust and torn up in sections. Someone had ripped out my mother's kitchen cabinets, the ones she'd painted by hand in 1987. "Excuse me, ma'am. You really shouldn't be in here without a hard hat." I turned and walked back outside. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called Jessica. It rang 4 times. 5. Then her voice, bright and casual. "Hi, Mom. What's up?" "Jessica, I'm at the Savannah house. There are construction workers here. They've torn apart the kitchen." A pause. Oh, Mom. Didn't I tell you? We're doing some renovations. Just updating things, to increase the rental value." "You didn't tell me anything." "I'm here to prepare Thanksgiving dinner. I have a turkey in my trunk." Another pause, longer this time. "Thanksgiving. Right. Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry, I thought Brad told you. We moved Thanksgiving to his parents' place this year. His mom really wanted to host, and with the renovations and everything, it just made sense." I stood there in the driveway, phone pressed to my ear, watching a stranger carry my mother's cabinets out to a dumpster. "You moved Thanksgiving?" "Yeah. I'm really sorry about the confusion. But hey, you made the drive. Why don't you stay at a hotel tonight and come to Brad's parents tomorrow? They're in Charleston, only 2 hours from where you are." "Jessica, whose permission did you get to renovate my property?" "Mom." Her voice changed, got that patient tone she uses on her kids. "We talked about this. You're getting older, and managing a rental property is a lot of work. Brad and I are just trying to help you out. We're covering all the renovation costs. Think of it as an investment in your future income." I don't remember this conversation. "You probably forgot. You've been forgetting a lot of things lately." I hadn't. I forget where I put my reading glasses sometimes. I don't forget entire conversations about tearing apart my childhood home. "I need to go," I said. "Okay, well, text me if you're coming tomorrow. Love you." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there for a long moment, looking at my parents' house, at the strangers dismantling it. Then I got back in my car, drove to a Publix down the street, and bought 6 Tupperware containers. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, dividing up the green bean casserole into portions I could freeze. The turkey I donated to a church food drive on my way out of town. I didn't drive to Charleston the next day. Back home in Atlanta on Thanksgiving evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a turkey sandwich from Kroger and opened my laptop. I'm not great with technology, but I knew how to use Google. I typed in Chatham County property records. It took me about an hour to figure out how to navigate the website. My back hurt from leaning toward the screen, but eventually I found it. My property, 847 Palmetto Street, owned by Margaret Chen. I clicked through every document they had. Deed, tax records, all still in my name. Then I found something dated October 3rd, a recorded document. Business filing for Coastal Haven Rentals, LLC. Managing member, Jessica Chen, Morrison. Business address, 847 Palmetto Street, Savannah, Georgia. My address. My property listed as the address of her business. I clicked deeper. Found the articles of organization. There was a line about contributed assets. It listed real property located at 847 Palmetto Street, including all improvements and furnishings. They were claiming my property was an asset of their business. I sat back in my chair. The house was very quiet. It was 9:30 on Thanksgiving night, and I was alone, and my daughter had somehow put my house into her business documents. I called my friend Patricia. We'd worked together for 15 years before we both retired. She answered on the second ring. "Maggie? Happy Thanksgiving. How was Savannah?" I told her. Everything. It all came spilling out. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Maggie, you need to call a lawyer. Tomorrow. This isn't just a misunderstanding. I don't even know what to call it. She's my daughter." "I know, honey, I know." After we hung up, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jessica as a little girl, how she'd hold my hand crossing the street, how she'd cried when she left for college. Where had I gone wrong? Or was Patricia right that this wasn't about me at all? At 2 a.m, I got up and started going through my files. Every document related to the Savannah property. I found my will, the deed, my property tax records. I made copies of everything and put them in a folder labeled Legal, Savannah. On Friday morning, I called the Georgia Bar Association and asked for referrals to attorneys who handle real estate disputes. They gave me 3 names. The first 2 weren't taking new clients. The third one, Sarah Brennan, could see me Monday morning at 10. I spent the weekend reading everything I could find online about property fraud, elder financial abuse, and real estate law. I learned that what Jessica had done listing my property as an asset of her LLC without my permission could potentially be fraud. I learned that in Georgia, elder financial abuse is taken seriously by the courts. I learned that I needed to document everything. So I started documenting. I went through every text message and email from Jessica in the past 6 months. I made screenshots of everything. There was nothing about renovations, nothing about Thanksgiving plans changing, nothing about her starting a rental property business. What I did find, a text from September where she'd asked me to send her a copy of the property deed for my files. I'd sent it, thinking she was just being organized. Monday morning, I dressed carefully. Not too formal, but professional. I still had my principal clothes. I drove to Sarah Brennan's office in Midtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her early 30s, with red hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Mrs. Chen, tell me what's going on." I laid it all out, showed her my folder, the LLC documents, the screenshots, the property deed. She listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she looked up at me. "Mrs. Chen, may I call you Margaret?" "Maggie is fine." "Maggie, I'm going to be direct with you. What your daughter has done is potentially several different crimes. Filing false business documents claiming she owns property that she doesn't. Possibly forging your signature or claiming authority she doesn't have. Depending on how far this has gone, we could be looking at theft by conversion, fraud, elder abuse." My chest felt tight. Elder abuse. That's what they call it, when someone steals from their grandmother, not when a daughter. That's exactly when they use it. Adult children taking advantage of elderly parents is one of the most common forms of elder financial abuse. She paused. "How much has she spent on renovations?" "I don't know. We need to find out. We need to know if she's taken out any loans against the property. We need to know if she's signed any contracts, as if she owns it. And we need to stop any more work immediately." "How do I do that?" "I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter to be sent to every contractor working on that property. You're going to call your daughter and tell her all work stops immediately. And then we're going to file paperwork to protect your property from any further claims. Will I have to press charges against her? Sarah's expression softened. Let's take this one step at a time. First, we stop the bleeding. Then we figure out how bad the wound is. Then you decide how you want to proceed. I hired her. It cost me a $3,000 retainer. It was money I'd been saving for a cruise Thomas and I had always planned to take. But Thomas was gone, and my daughter was stealing my house, so I wrote the check. That afternoon, Sarah's office sent certified letters to 3 construction companies. By Wednesday, all work had stopped. Jessica called me Wednesday evening. I was in the middle of heating up leftover soup. Mom, what the hell? The contractors just walked off the job. They said you sent them legal threats. I turned off the stove. I didn't threaten anyone. I told them to stop working on my property without my permission. Your permission? Mom, we're doing this for you. We've already spent $17,000 on renovations. We can't just stop now. $17,000. Where did you get $17,000? I asked quietly. We took out a small loan against the equity in the property, just to cover the renovation costs until we can start renting it out at premium rates. You took out a loan against my property. Mom, it's not like that. We're protecting your investment. You're 68 years old. What if something happens to you? What if you need money for medical care? A fully renovated vacation rental can bring in $10,000 a month in high season. We're securing your future. By forging my signature on loan documents. Silence. I never forged anything. You signed a power of attorney form last Christmas. Remember? When you had that bad flu and I said I'd handle paying your property taxes while you recovered? I did remember. I'd been sick. Jessica had come over with soup and paperwork. I'd signed things. She'd said it was just for the property taxes. A limited power of attorney for one specific task isn't permission to take out loans. Mom, are you accusing me of something? I'm saying you don't have my permission to renovate my property, to list it as an asset of your business, or to take out loans against it. Fine. Her voice went cold. Fine, we'll undo everything. We'll eat the $17,000 loss. But don't come crying to me when that property falls apart and you can't afford to maintain it. She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table with my cooling soup and realized my hands were shaking. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah and I worked to untangle what Jessica and Brad had done. The loan was real $15,000 from a local credit union with forged signatures. We filed a police report for forgery. The business filings were amended to remove my property from their LLC assets. The contractors filed liens against the property for unpaid work, which we had to negotiate settlements for because Jessica and Brad refused to pay them. My grandchildren called. Emma, 16, crying, "Grandma, Mom said you're trying to destroy our family. She said you're pressing charges against her." Sweetheart, I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm protecting something that belongs to me. But Mom said you're being selfish, that you don't care about our future. I closed my eyes. Emma, has your mom told you what she did? She said she was trying to help you and you're too stubborn to see it. How do you explain to a 16-year-old that her mother committed fraud? How do you tell her that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you worst? I love you, I said. Nothing that's happening between your mom and me changes that. But I need you to know that adults have to be responsible for their choices. Your mum made some choices that weren't right, and now there are consequences. She hung up crying. That night, I barely slept. 2 days later, my son-in-law Brad called. His voice was friendly, conciliatory. Maggie, hey. Listen, I think we all got off on the wrong foot here. Jessica's really upset, the kids are upset, this is all just a big misunderstanding. Brad, you took out a loan against my property using forged documents. Okay, I know how it looks. But here's the thing, we were going to pay back every penny, we had a business plan. The renovations were going to triple the rental income. You would have made your money back in 2 years. Without asking me. We didn't think we needed to ask. You signed that power of attorney. We interpreted that as permission to act in your best interest. No lawyer would interpret it that way. Look. His voice got harder. You're making this a much bigger deal than it needs to be. You've filed police reports. You've cost us thousands in legal fees. The contractors are threatening to sue us. All this because you can't accept that we were trying to help. You weren't trying to help. You were trying to take my property. Jesus Christ. Maggie, you're 68 years old. You don't need a vacation rental. You barely go there. We were going to manage it, do all the work, and give you the income. But now you've destroyed our business plan. Our credit is going to take a hit from the loan default, and our kids think their grandmother is destroying their family. Then maybe you should tell them the truth." He hung up. I sat there holding my phone for a long time. That Sunday, I went to church. I hadn't been in months. I sat in the back pew and listened to Pastor Williams talk about forgiveness. About how holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. After the service, I stayed to help fold bulletins for next week. Melissa Santos, who I knew from the church volunteer committee, sat down next to me. "Maggie, I heard you came in. Are you okay? You look tired." I don't know what it was about the way she asked. Maybe just that someone finally asked. But I started crying right there in the fellowship hall, folding papers, and told her everything. When I finished, Melissa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My sister went through something similar. Her son and his wife convinced her to add them to her bank accounts. Just in case. They drained $40,000 before she noticed. What did she do? She prosecuted. He went to jail for a year. The family hasn't spoken to her in 5 years. But she got her money back. And she said she sleeps better knowing she stood up for herself. Do you think she did the right thing?" Melissa folded another bulletin carefully. "I think there's no right answer when your family betrays you. You just have to decide what you can live with." I went home and called Sarah Brennan. "Sarah, if I drop the criminal charges, will Jessica give me back my property rights? Clean everything up? Sign something saying she has no claim? We can make that offer. But Maggie, you need to understand dropping charges might feel like mercy, but it also sends a message that there are no consequences for this behavior. I know, but I'm not sure I can live with sending my daughter to jail. That's your choice. I'll draft a settlement agreement." The agreement was simple. Jessica and Brad would disclaim any interest in my property, pay off the fraudulent loan, settle with the contractors, and sign documents affirming they had no power of attorney rights. In exchange, I would not pursue criminal charges. We met in Sarah's office on a grey December afternoon. Jessica and Brad sat across from me with their lawyer. Jessica wouldn't look at me. The lawyers talked. Papers were signed. 20 minutes later, it was done. As we stood to leave, Jessica finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. "Are you happy now?" I looked at my daughter, this person I'd raised, who I'd driven 4 hours to cook Thanksgiving dinner for, who'd called me selfish for refusing to let her steal from me. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not happy. I'm heartbroken. But I'm not sorry." We left through different doors. Christmas came and went. Emma and Jake, my grandkids, sent me cards but said they couldn't come visit. Jessica had told them I was being vindictive. I spent Christmas Eve alone, eating takeout Chinese food and watching old movies. But I also spent it knowing that my parents' house was still mine, that I'd stood up for myself, that I hadn't let fear or guilt or love make me small. In January, I went back to the Savannah property. The renovations were half finished, suspended in mid-transformation. It would take money I didn't have to finish them properly. Money I didn't have to restore it to what it was. I sat on the porch steps and looked at the ocean. My father used to sit right here, drinking his morning coffee. My mother would come out and they'd watch the sunrise together. This place held so much love, and Jessica had tried to take it from me. I listed the property for sale in February. It sold in 3 weeks, even half renovated, because Savannah real estate was hot. I made $180,000 after paying off the fraudulent loan and the contractor settlements. I could have kept the money, used it for retirement, maybe finally taken that cruise. Instead, I called Patricia. "I want to do something with this money. Something that matters. What are you thinking? How many women our age are dealing with their kids, trying to take advantage of them? How many of them can't afford lawyers? Probably a lot. What if we set up a fund to help women over 60 who are facing elder financial abuse by family members? Pay for legal fees. Advocate for them. Let them know they're not alone." Patricia was quiet then. "I love it. What are we calling it?" I thought about my parents, about Thomas, about the daughter I'd lost to greed, about all the women sitting alone right now, trying to figure out if protecting themselves makes them bad mothers. "The Thomas Chen Elder Justice Fund," I said. "After my husband. He always said family should build each other up, not tear each other down. We filed the paperwork in March. A 501c3 non-profit. Patricia and I and 2 other retired women from our church became the board. By April, we'd helped 3 women hire lawyers to fight back against adult children stealing from them. One of them, a 72-year-old named Dorothy, came to our office crying after we'd helped her stop her son from selling her house without permission. "I thought I was crazy," she said. "He told me I was being paranoid, that I was remembering things wrong. You made me feel sane again." That night, I went home to my empty house and felt less empty than I had in months. In May, Emma called me. Not a text, an actual phone call. "Grandma, can we talk?" "Of course, sweetheart. I found something. In Mum's desk. Papers about the Savannah house. About the loans." She paused. "Grandma, I didn't know. I didn't know what they did. Mom told me you were just being difficult. I know you didn't know. Why did she do it?" "I don't know, baby. People make choices. Sometimes we don't understand why. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I believed her. I'm sorry I said those things to you." I closed my eyes. "You're 16. You're supposed to believe your mother. You didn't do anything wrong. Can I come visit you this summer?" "You can come visit me any time you want." She came in June, stayed a week. We didn't talk much about Jessica or Brad. We went to the movies, made cookies. She helped me stuff envelopes for the foundation. On her last day, as I drove her to the airport, she said, "Grandma, I want to be like you when I grow up." "Like me, how?" "Brave. You didn't let anyone make you small." I reached over and squeezed her hand. In August, I went back to Savannah. The house had been fully renovated by the new owners, turned into a gorgeous vacation rental. They'd kept my mother's porch swing, said it was too beautiful to replace. I sat on that swing and watched the ocean and felt Thomas next to me, felt my parents, felt all the love that had lived in this place. And I felt something else. Not revenge, not even justice, really. Just peace. The peace of knowing that when I was tested, I didn't fold. When my daughter tried to take from me, I protected what was mine. Not with cruelty, not with spite, just with quiet, firm boundaries. The foundation has helped 42 women so far. Some won their cases, some didn't. But all of them learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, that protecting what's yours isn't being difficult, that you can love someone and still hold them accountable. Jessica and I haven't spoken in almost a year now. Maybe someday we will. Maybe someday she'll understand what she did. Maybe someday she'll apologize. But I'm not waiting for that day to be okay. I'm already okay. I'm Margaret Chen. I'm 68 years old. My daughter tried to steal my house. I stopped her, and then I used what I learned to help other women do the same. And you know what? Some days I still cry about it. Some days I miss her so much it physically hurts. Some days I wonder if I did the right thing. But most days I wake up and look at myself in the mirror and think, you stood up. You didn't let fear of being called difficult or mean or vindictive make you accept being stolen from. You taught your granddaughter that love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Most days that's enough. If you're reading this, if you're in your 60s or 70s and your kids are pressuring you to sign things, to give them access to your accounts, to make them joint owners on your property just in case, please listen to me. You're not paranoid. You're not being difficult. Trust your gut. And if you need help, organizations like ours exist. Lawyers like Sarah exist. You're not alone. You have the right to protect what's yours. You have the right to say no, even especially to family.